Welcome to the Aspects of Lore, a podcast where we take a topic and give you aspects of lore behind that topic. Here are your hosts. There's me, Rich, and with me today we've got Rubber Rory.
Hello.
Scrappy Coco, the aspect of friendship.
Oh, yeah.
And Uthos. Uthos?
Uthos, yeah.
Okay. Today we'll be taking a look at the new book, Shadows Rising, taking a deep dive into the book, and it goes without saying that if you don't want to be spoiled, you should come back and listen at a later time. This is not the best way to experience the book. Reading it or listening to the fantastic audiobook would be better. Okay, so the author...
Madeline Rue.
Yes. She also wrote the
Last Traveler book.
Yes. And
the
Lothramar short story as well.
And the Lothramar, yes.
And the Asylum series.
Ooh, I don't know that one.
Yes, I'm not familiar with that aspect of her work.
But I enjoyed her writing style. I mean, I didn't read the book. I listened to the audiobook, so it was Talanji's voice actress that I was listening to.
Actually, I did read the physical copy. I thought it started off a little slow, just starting off from Anduin's perspective, I believe. But I think most of that's because he's a conflicted character right now, still kind of adding on to that Heart of Steel of his. So I want to say it's weak writing. It was probably a difficult character to write out at the beginning, but gradually throughout the book, I think it got a lot better. By the end, I was very satisfied. I even liked it more than the in between that Battle for Azeroth and Legion had, the Beyond the Storm. So
yeah.
I think she did a really good job.
So I'm not dissing any writers because they all write well. I have preferences. Towards certain writers. What I enjoyed about her writing technique, where Christy Golden does more of a, she kind of tells a story like from above. What I noticed about Madeline Rue's writing technique is like it kind of makes you feel like my character in WoW, where you're like right over the shoulder.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just me, but Golden takes more of a like larger approach where she has more of a bigger view, and Madeline takes you right into the scenario from like you feel like you're right above that character.
Like a fly on the wall.
Yeah, a lot of good attention to detail
like
that Madeline goes into.
Specifically with that, there was one point, I think it's when you first really interact with Mathis, like, I really felt like, hey, I could be playing in game and that could be going on. Like, I felt like my character could be there, no problem. Like, just stick me in there. That's one thing, yeah. I agree with that.
Not that Golden's method isn't good either.
Oh, no,
like, she's wrote some amazing things.
Yes.
Like, I definitely see what you mean by the different perspective of it. It's a lot more attention to detail up front, a lot more of like what's this character feeling, the emotions running through their face at the moment, what the smell is. That's something I know Madeline did a lot of.
Yeah.
But she likes to do that. She likes to do the smells to try to bring you closer to.
Mm-hmm. It worked pretty well.
It worked for me as well.
Mm-hmm. I didn't like it too much the first few chapters, but I think it's a hard story to get a foothold onto at the beginning. But she worked well with what she had, and by the end, I was very appreciative of it.
Well, I certainly know what Flynn smells like now.
Oh, yeah.
What whiskey, salt, and soap.
Yep.
I love the one where he's like holding the bottle. I love that.
And then if for those of us that listen to the audiobook, the voice actress who happens to be the one who voices Talanji.
So
I loved her.
I did too. But what was really interesting for me was I started listening to the book and I was like, I know this voice, but I didn't know it from Talanji. I was like, I know this from something. And my husband and I had just watched a British TV show, like comedy, called Chewing Gum. And she was like this crazy sister to the main character. And she's the actress in that as well. And I was like, oh my God, it's this chick that we've just been watching for like 2 weeks. And she's actually voice acting the same thing, and I never realized she was Talanji. Her voice is obviously super British, and I assumed that she had the same kind of accent as Talanji, which is not.
And then when she voiced Jaina, she purposely
American.
I thought that was really well done. She purposely imitated the Jaina actress. And I don't know if that was done intentionally on her part. I mean, I can't imagine it not have been done intentionally, but she nailed the whole like Jaina naivete type of like, you know, like, oh, well, you would do that, wouldn't you? It was really well done. I rather enjoyed it.
She was the only character, wasn't she, that she put into an American accent. The rest were just British.
Well, no, all the trolls. She did do the troll accent.
Yeah.
I loved the Forsaken
that
accent.
was the only one of them.
Sylvanas is.
There's a Forsaken in it.
Yeah, that
Cotley. Apothecary.
Oh yes, I liked him.
The apothecary.
I really
I thought that
him.
was.
She went raspy for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also Bane. I wasn't crazy about the way she did Bane. It was like she was like, but she tried, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it wasn't. I guess it's not her forte, being a giant bull man.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's used to being Talanji.
We all liked her.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed her.
The book starts off at Westfall.
Yes.
And immediately you are in Westfall, which is interesting place to start, I thought.
Yeah, I did too.
And the citizens have a bad taste in their mouth for the monarchy. Now, I thought it was interesting because already if you play the game in Westfall, they already don't like the monarchy for what Anixia did in Classic, and how she manipulated that whole scenario and turned half of the citizenry against the monarchy. So that it started there was, I thought, an interesting choice, and I'm sure it was deliberate on Madeline's part. But immediately Anduin meets a person who isn't dealing with loss very well, clearly.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what I took from it. And he immediately starts to doubt himself, which is an interesting thing because I main a priest until Void Form. And I thought it's an interesting character when Anduin was a certain type of way and very resolute and very resolved in the game up until the defeat of the Legion, and then he changed as a character, and I think that was intentionally on Blizzard's part. I don't know if anybody else agreed with that, but that's when we started getting doubt, because even in the last book, he starts second guessing himself, starts second guessing his choices, and starts second guessing himself as a ruler, and you start to see that creeping in again in this part. I don't know if anybody else caught on to that.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like after Kalia being basically risen, he seemed to, that was kind of the turning point for him. That was like the hay that broke the camel's back ordeal for me anyway, because you had his dad dying and all of that, and then all of Tedrassil burning and everything like that after Kalia. So it's like that right there, I think that was probably the turning point where he starts doubting himself even more.
An interesting note. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I was pretty much
wanted to piggyback off what you said. A lot of the doubt through Legion was mostly trying to rise up to his father's standard. And if you notice in Shadows Rising, he doesn't mention his father once through the doubts. Yeah. I think it's, as Scrappy said, like it's just there's a lot going on. There's the Night Elves that are completely trying to splinter away. There was the burning of Teldrassil, the sudden the Arathi, the Forsaken Human meeting that went
Yeah.
wrong. I think that was a strong point.
That made me so sad.
And I think the doubt also started at the beginning because one of the peasant he meets is Jago. He was one of the humans there meeting his guard buddy Wilmer, and I guess seeing that, even though the war was over, was still like a bitter, horrible reassurance on like everything that's already happened, how people are still suffering. And he mentions throughout the book various times like these soldiers aren't just no one, they're still dying, they're still washing up on shores. It's like no matter what point he gets to, it doesn't like, they're his people. And he's just not quite sure how to take that all in. So
and you could definitely see him caring about all of them. It's not like he's not, he really does care. It's just how much can he actually do?
Yeah. He's 19. He's 19, been flung into this impossible role. He has no one to guide. Well, his dad isn't there to guide him on how to govern properly.
Yeah.
So that also introduces the mirror of the book where Talanji is in the same exact place.
Yep.
She's the same exact age, and she's going through the same exact things. Because everything that Anduin is going through, Talanji was going through as well.
Yep.
Including the death of a parent, same parent. I mean, the difference is, the mother's death is completely different because in Talanji's situation, the mother betrayed the father and tried to kill him. That's how he got his scar in his eye and all that.
Yeah.
Whereas for Anduin, it was the people of Westfall that accidentally killed his mom. But it's still a lot of similarities, and I know that Madeline was definitely trying to present both sides of it so you could see the differences aren't really there.
Yeah.
But
something.
Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
I just I again piggybacking off an interaction I wish they put a bit more into it as far as like similarities go is Tyrande and Jaina, seeing as both of them had destroyed city, several friends burned to ash. I thought they would go a bit more into that because they're going through the same feelings. This whole story, I even put it down in the Google Drive notes, like how Jaina's redemption arc, as far as towards the Horde and a little bit over herself, I think is detailed a bit more in this book. Because in the game we just see cutscenes of it, we don't really know what's going through her head.
Yeah.
So actually, like getting in depth, realizing that she's slowly turning around. There's a few moments Anduin calls her out on it, like you still had a vengeful plot against the Horde. But I thought Jaina would be a bit more sympathetic, or some.
I think
some
that what
kind
you're
of interaction.
you're saying is really important because Jaina already went through everything and reconciled with everything, and it took a lot for her to reconcile with everything, and especially in her book, she was very raw with that explosion and everything that did to her, and then she took it out on the Blood Elves in Dalaran, and then she reconciled with herself. Tyrande isn't anywhere near there. Tyrande hasn't gotten there at all. She's all rage, and she's taken on the aspect of the Night Warrior. She's all rage all the time, and that's eating away at her, and that's going to come to that's definitely going to come to a turning point in Shadowlands. You could see that's where that story is going to lead to. But
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah,
she's not evolved like Jaina is. Jaina is definitely come to terms with it. But
I'm really proud of Jaina.
Yeah,
I like Jaina a lot.
I hated Jaina through the end of Miss just because of I was really into Horde at the time. I really liked Jaina from Warcraft, and just seeing this change of character was devastating to me. And it's really nice seeing this reconcile, this redemption. I don't know if redemption is the best word for it, because I wouldn't say she really owes any redemption.
He doesn't need to be redeemed.
Just coming to terms with the trauma she's been through.
Mm-hmm.
And not letting that take over everything.
Yeah.
Dismantle the Horde.
Then let's go right to the Horde.
Okay.
Because then after this, it cuts to that Horde council meeting, the reaction to the armistice, how everybody's dealing with it. The Forsaken are leaderless. They're insisting on Lillian and Kalia speaking for them.
But that was interesting.
Valkyra are represented and offering food to the Forsaken, not realizing that the Forsaken are just, you know.
I absolutely love that because it still gives you that feeling like they're new. They don't really know all the races completely still. Like, they're still getting used to being a part of something bigger. That's what I really loved about that. For me playing a Valkyra, I thought that was great.
But the first interesting part about the Horde Council meeting is that the Forsaken made a point of saying that they want Lordaeron back.
Yeah.
There's no mixed messages there, and Kalia is 100% on board.
Yeah, I loved the fact. I think it was a little bit later on. I don't know if they said it right through here, but Princess of Lordaeron. They specifically called her that, and I thought that was really cool.
They called her the Princess of Lordaeron. 100%, they did call her that. So that was an interesting thing. I mean, I've seen Madeline on interviews, and she's made it a point to say that certain things were told to her that she needed to mention, and then other things she had the liberty of putting in there. Now, that Lordaeron back thing sounds like something that Blizzard would want her to mention.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely a point of contention between the Alliance and the Horde. And then the next thing, we go right to Talanji, and her immediate reaction to the armistice and the need for reciprocity towards the Proudmoors, and how that is just not something that the Horde Council has an appetite for at all.
No. I mean, Thrall, Bane, they're close with Jaina. They're not going to want an all-out war against her. And they were instrumental in bringing everything to a head. They needed her. I totally
understand where Talanji's coming from. Jaina's the face of that attack. Jaina killed her father. Everything that Talanji's feeling is very valid right now.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be that. So that's the part of the book where that introduces the rift between Talanji and the rest of the Horde Council.
Absolutely.
But then that goes right to the Earthen Ring, bringing a warning about the ancestors being in unrest, which is what leads us to the Shadowlands. I mean, that's the whole point of it.
Dun, dun, dun.
And what they're going to do about it. But then they cut to Nazmir, and Pari is introduced, a good character.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I enjoyed her.
Yeah, I enjoyed her.
Introduction was just that.
Teo, I really enjoyed them. Around this point, for whatever reason, my favorite character towards this part of the book was Sierra. For whatever reason, Sierra was my favorite around this point. I was like, man, she's bloodthirsty. She just wants to kill everything.
I really like the Nathanos Sierra duo. I really like Nathanos. I know a lot of people hate him.
I like him.
Fair enough. But I always enjoyed his character. I always enjoyed the drill sergeant kind of personality on him, the bittersweet the backhanded compliments he'd give. I thought he was a fun character to have. I really liked his leadership through the Alliance invasion during the Battle of Dazar'alor. I wish he stuck around. I really wish from the get-go Sylvanas never turned against us. I mean, it is what it is. It's the direction they chose, and I'm sure in due time they'll clarify why. But Sylvanas, that pretty much means the Battle for Azeroth trailer didn't matter when she shouted for the Horde. That means Vol'jin's funeral speech didn't matter, and I don't know. We'll see what direction they chose.
I don't know about that with Sylvanas. She's I think she really wanted to represent the Horde in a positive way up until a certain point. Like, she always had her ulterior motives. There was never any denying that she definitely had a plan the whole time. But she definitely wanted to appear as though she cared about the Horde. That certainly, she was definitely doing that.
I thought it worked pretty well. I really liked her in Legion, actually. I didn't like her too much at first. I thought it was a crazy anointment for
Same.
War Chief.
I love Vol'jin.
Well, yeah, Vol'jin was great. He was like a nice Boy Scout leader. He was pretty awesome. But Sylvanas, it took me a while to get used to, but what ultimately got her, which surprised me the most, is how passionate she was for her people.
I was surprised by that as well.
Yeah, in Stormheim, she was going to great lengths to figure out how to get more Valkyrie or whatever, and rise more Forsaken, because it like even in Silverpine Forest, like that's a motive for her: get more people, recruit more, the Forsaken grow strong. So just to see her like shrug that all aside, and we're not even quite sure when or why that came up, it just blew my mind.
See,
the Horde is nothing.
See, to jump off of her looking for more Valkyr and stuff, it kind of brings you back to, I think it was Cataclysm, whenever you quest as a Forsaken, or that zone anyway, where she's raising more with Valkyr, and Garrosh comes in. He's like, "What makes you any different than the Lich King?" And I thought that.
Oh, I rember that. I loved that quest line.
I loved it too.
Well, they've always been mirroring that.
Yeah,
they've always been mirroring his arc with her arc. Yeah.
They've always been different, and I have always known Sylvanas, especially growing up, it's been strictly, she really only cares about her people, herself, and that's about it. And seeing her in Legion turn into, let's for the Horde, I thought that was a little bit weird, coming from someone who grew up with Sylvanas. I thought that was weird seeing her go that direction. Now, I liked it, but it didn't really surprise me whenever she went batshit crazy and now she's gone. It didn't really surprise me too much.
It was too good to be true, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, do we know that?
We haven't gotten to the end of her arc until Shadowlands,
Blizzard, they did mention in an interview with one of the lead story game designers, that Sylvanas' motive would be explained, and in that moment, they were hoping for us to question it, like to the point where there'd be support or not. So I don't know if there's good behind
sure
or it could just
happens.
be silly story writing, but I guess we'll see what happens.
I'm a little bit a little loyalist here. I like her.
That's fun. So back to the book, we go back to the celebration in Orgrimmar, where the Khan is established as the Jar Jar Binks of the.
Yeah.
He trips over himself and does all these silly things, and in the process of being clumsy, stops an assassination attempt right out of Star Wars. And Talanji starts to think, what's the purpose of her staying in the Horde? I mean, she's not really getting anything out of this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, she's just been losing.
They can't protect her inside of Orgrimmar.
Yeah.
They did.
Inside of Orgrimmar, if it wasn't for some clumsy troll, she would have died. Right? And then,
good old sappy boy.
And so, what is she getting out of it? So she just leaves, which I totally get. And I'm with her at this point in the book. I'm like, why would anybody want to stay with the Horde after this?
Especially considering how ugly Orgrimmar is.
All right, that's debatable. The Zandalari are very prideful people, so just I absolutely understood.
They're just elves. They're just elves in a nicer, in a different,
with tusks.
Yeah, elves with
more
tusks.
Aggressive elves.
Or are elves trolls without tusks? I think technically they are.
There you go.
Maybe the tusks.
Yeah, well, they're the
to
progenitors.
ears.
Right. So we go to her back in Zoldazar, and she's reflecting on the Horde capital, and this is where her doubt comes in, second guessing herself and what she should do, and in comes her Loa.
Good old one someday.
One someday.
Yeah, I loved the way
and
she
he
wrote
immediately he establishes the power struggle between them, and her worries and doubts about that blood pact that they have. He says that he took credit for Zappy Boy tripping. I don't know if that's true or not. It may be or may not be. He lies a lot, so it doesn't matter.
I think he probably did it. I would imagine he'd want to stay Loa of the kings and queens.
Yeah,
yeah, he definitely wants that. That's
like,
he doesn't hide that.
Everything Bon Samdi does, whether good or bad, in the end it benefits himself. Like, he's a trickster Loa. So like, we do see an established change of character. Well, I guess we'll go over that later through him throughout the book. Like, we really go a bit more into him, but the end goal all the time is just what benefits him the most.
I enjoy him very much.
Yeah, he's a fun character to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like he was being set up as a villain, and everybody seemed to like him, so they scrambled last minute and changed it up, which is fine. I mean, that's what you do in a game.
Even my wife loves watching this guy. He's just
really?
he's a fun character. Yeah, she enjoyed the cinematic.
Then we go back to Nazmir, and the Dark Rangers are brought in. Nathanos introduces his MacGuffin in his pocket. Like, we want to establish Chekhov's gun. It's right here. In case of anything, I'll break glass. That's fine. I mean, writers have to do that. And they say that the Horde is at a place where there's no one voice to get anything done, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that.
I think they just really underestimated that council in general, because it seemed to be working pretty well. I know a lot of people are upset that there's not really a war chief anymore. The council's kind of a silly idea, but the council interactions throughout this book have been pleasantly surprising to watch. Like, just seeing the voice, like Horde, I've said this before, well, I guess just to you guys, has always been about like the diversity, like the monsters working together as a brotherhood. So just like seeing like Blood Elf representation, Nightborn representation, all these different cultures of like higher and lower. Like, you got, Dirty Orgrimmar, you got representatives from the High and Mighty Suramar.
Yes,
so it was just, I think it's a very fun idea to go with, to see all these different perspectives. And then when you see them all agree with one another, which I guess we'll go over later in the book, towards the end, it works so strong. They get things done, and we don't have to worry about another crazy war chief.
Here, here Nathanos is thinking that that's going to work against him. Mm-hmm. And he seems to be telling both the rebels and the Dark Rangers that too many voices are going to kind of cancel each other out, and they're going to work against the Horde. But he's also telling the rebels to spread rumors that the Horde is going to take over the Zandalari, which I find interesting.
Well, he wants to incite panic.
He wants more recruitment for the rebels, which it worked throughout the book. Every chapter she mentions how there's more and more.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And then we cut back to the Horde Council, and they've been in this meeting since she left. And they named Zakan the ambassador, which was it is what it is.
I love seeing Zappy get a little bit of love. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he came out of nowhere either. Like, Sarfang had him under his wing, this high and mighty general of the Horde. So I'm sure they all had a sense of who this guy was.
Is during BFA, Rokan has kind of been moving in on Talanji, and he was kind of like, trying to like mac it with her and all that. And then all of a sudden, this kid like is the ambassador, and he has a crush on her, and I mean, I'm sure for a troll, she's probably the most beautiful troll ever. who knows? I don't know. But to see him, everybody like, oh yeah, I'll go work with her. Don't worry about it. I'll be there. That's interesting.
That headdress caught his eye. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Very big
impossible to avoid. Once it gets you, you're caught.
That's it.
So then we go back to Stormwind, and Anduin is bearing six more people, but these he realizes have been killed by Dark Rangers, which is interesting. So he immediately names Turallion Lord Commander of the Army of Stormwind, and Gen is immediately set up to be suspicious about the armistice, which we didn't doubt anything like that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, Gen is always going to be that way. That's
Gen, isn't it?
That's Gan.
100%. And Turallion being Lord Commander is where I'm like, interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was a choice.
I did think it was weird. Gen was still against the Horde in general more than he was Sylvanas, because the only reason I think he was so motivated against the Horde through Legion and starting that conflict in Stormwind was because of Sylvanas. Like he tried to assassinate the War Chief at the end of that campaign. So I just thought it was weird that they kept him on this like hatred to the Horde persona. I thought he'd be more cooperative in general, just getting to Sylvanas.
Is it just like transference of hatred from Sylvanas straight into the Horde because they were supporting her throughout the time that she was causing them problems? That's
fair enough. I guess
maybe
suspicions. I guess it's so easy to overthink, like seeing six of your own wash up on shore. There's a lot of conclusions you can come to.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because I don't blame any of them for feeling the way they feel, that what happened was terrible, and obviously they need to figure out a way to get past it because they can't keep fighting this war forever. They're going to lose all of their people. That's never going to be useful to continue. So Anduin being the voice of reason, saying, listen, we gotta work on this armistice, because if we just keep fighting and we keep hating them, that's just not going to be a way forward.
Yeah.
Let's go to Zuldazar, where the Zentruli Council are meeting. So we have
Tortolans.
A Tortolan and a Dire Troll. Well, the Dire Troll really doesn't do much.
Do they ever?
And that's funny, yeah. They allow this young troll to marry her girlfriend, but I didn't really understand what was her father involved with that prevented this from happening. But
they supported Chandra. They supported the Spider Loa during that whole rebellion, and it kind of cut off their royal ties. Evidently, Apari even stood with Talanji during this sequence against her own mother. So Apari's an interesting character to go into. I guess later on, she's a bit more established later on. I'm sure we'll talk about her then. Right. But
Rata is advising her, which is interesting. So she's still a thing, even though she lost her Loa, which, I mean, that's a whole thing that we'll have to get into in the future, because the Prillets are quite an interesting bit of lore there. Okay, so the crowd starts to chant, and we get to, the active rebellion, because they're not happy with her being part of the Horde now.
Yeah, I think it's good that, because they showed conflict at the beginning of Battle for Azeroth when she brought in the Horde, all those doubters and people that hated the Horde right off the bat, and they never really delved too much into that. It was more for the followers of Gahun rather than rebellions throughout the city. So it makes sense. I think it's a good attention to detail to keep that tension there. Like, not everyone's suddenly so happy after Gahun got stopped. Like, people still have their doubts. So I think it was interesting to bring in this Widow's Bite faction that was recruiting very very fast, very quick, getting bigger and bigger. So it was interesting to see, like, it was a good connect way for Talanji to establish a bit more of her stance, her stature, her queen position, at the same time addressing the people that were still mad about the Horde joining in. So,
and what I found interesting there is that when Zakan comes in, everybody's immediately like, "Oh, he's part of the Horde. You can't trust him. This and that." But Talanji doesn't even remember that this is the same guy that saved his life. Like, she's like, "Yeah, what's your name?" Like, you could see that either there's a lot of stuff on her mind, or she just doesn't care about anything.
mm-hmm.
So that's, I guess,
Maybe
up to
both.
your own interpretation. And he confirms that everybody is thinking that she's selling out her throne to run something. That's interesting right off the bat.
Which
They wanna. Go ahead.
you could see that she hasn't spoken to her people about what's going on and about why she's in this position. So of course they're gonna have these rumors flying around about what's going on. So, go on.
Second assassination attempt happens, which, I mean, everybody's trying to kill this poor girl. I don't know. So she does her power barrier, stops the 12 rebels, and again, Zakan kills the person. You know, that's fine, I suppose.
Doesn't sound like it.
But I found interesting that they specifically spoke about Bwansamdi as the law of graves and not the law of death. That was
that was weird to me too. I was like, huh.
But that's where I started to realize, okay, so Bwansamdi was supposed to be the villain, and now they're establishing that he's not. So he's not the big bad.
That makes sense.
And here we get the Loa making a deal with Zakan, which is interesting.
Go on.
The vision was clearly a lie. We know that, and I don't understand why he did that. And I mean, I'm sure Madeline has a reason for it. I just don't see what it is.
I was struggling with that as well.
He was still going to do whatever they told him to do anyway.
Did they just want him to feel good?
I think they wanted to give that not only Zakan, but the audience that reassurance of Sarfang, because we got that vision where he's in this heaven with his son and heading home to his wife. I think they just wanted to throw that a bit in, just to kind of, I don't know if they're establishing a bit more of a connection between the audience and Zakan. I don't know if they're just trying to give a taste. But then at the end, you know
that's not true.
Yeah. It was fake. So
yeah, he's in the maw suffering like everybody else is. So, you know, I guess, making everybody feel a little bit better.
I think
temporarily.
I personally liked it just because I guess he probably just needed to see it for just Zappy loving Sourfang. Just to know that he's okay. Or to think that he's okay.
Or maybe, thinking that he's okay will enable him to protect Talanji.
Yeah, a little bit better.
Okay.
A good theme of this book, as Uthos stated, was doubt. There's a lot of doubt running through a lot of the characters. They just got out of a crazy war, and Zakan himself is doubting himself constantly. You know, Jar Jar being stuttering over his words, shaking in, tripping all over the place. So I think slowly, like by the end, we'll get to later, he's a bit better. But I think this is a good stepping stone to kind of relieve some of the doubt. I don't know if Somebody pulled it as a trick up his sleeve, or if it was just some, whatever. It just happened. One Somebody likes his tricks. But I think he definitely felt, you could see a stronger change of character, just a little slightly after this moment.
So cut to Arathi, and Illyria's having nightmares.
Illyria.
Yeah,
Illyria. It's a Windrunner thing, I think.
It goes back to she refers back to the Three Sisters comic where the Void told her to kill Sylvanas, and she should have listened. You know, in the nightmare, Sylvanas kills her husband and her son. I mean, they're really like turning it up with her. Okay, so immediately the first thought I had, because she needs her son and her husband to anchor her from the Void. Like that's what they established.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They've been establishing that for the last, since N'Zoth, since the Three Sisters comic. Her husband and her son is her anchor to reality. So immediately I thought, okay, so they're probably going to die in the next expansion.
Well, I could see that, because even in the horrific vision that you go in, like that right there, I could see that totally being a possibility, like, or something like that. So I could see her being the crazy Windrunner.
So then Lightforge Sen traveling through the rift. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, I was. How do you bring a light forge through a void?
Didn't seem to like it, but I would have thought it impossible.
Yeah, and
surely they should have just rejected her.
How does a rift even work? Do you just go like a wormhole to the other side? Do you pass through the rift?
It's described as like tearing a hole in reality to another spot. It's weird.
Okay. So it's not like you have to go through the rift to get to the other side, because a light forge can't go into the rift.
No,
because if that
she gets, I think like it's a small gap as far as the rift goes, because it's just one spot to the other. But I'm sure she came out pretty disgusted. She didn't feel good. Yeah, so I'm sure she still went through it slightly. Maybe not took a little walk, but maybe just whoop right through to the other side, and she was not happy. Yeah. I really like this chapter. Sorry, keep going on. I didn't put
the enhanced interrogation methods, where I found interesting. It was definitely a choice. And I think this is specifically given to Madeline to write.
Yeah.
This is something that I think she mentioned that the light and void aspects of the book were specifically given to her to write. So we know that Blizzard wants this choice in, where Terralion is using the light to hold down people while Ilaria is probing their mind. That is...
I hated it.
It's bonkers.
Hated it.
That's where, like, Cotley comes in. I don't know why. I love the way that she described, from a writing perspective, how she described Cotley. The beard that kind of was there, kind of still is there.
Stringy beard that you can't choose on customization options. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I loved Apothecary Cotley as well. I even put some notes down on him and Gauzis, the orc mother. What I thought was interesting was despite Sylvanas leaving, this was a Forsaken defending, standing in front of these refugees, these troll and orc refugees, saying, "I'll speak for them. I'll tell you what you guys need to know." So Cotley, he was a good character. I really enjoyed him.
Same.
This chapter in general really clarifies, and Uthos did it pretty well, Terralion and Illyria's light and dark situation, how they anchor each other. I think that was an amazing way to describe it.
That brought me back to Benedictus, which I thought was interesting. Immediately I thought Benedictus, where he was, I used a void to manipulate the light.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so the void can manipulate the light into thinking this is the right path. And that's just where my brain went. I don't know if everybody...
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, we only get a little bit of clarification throughout this chapter, but it's definitely established that they need each other. If one goes, the other one's pretty much going to go. So we'll see how they fare in the next expansion. And then Jaina comes in. Judges.
Wait. Sorry.
No, Jaina doesn't show up yet. We cut into a party because they got to juxtapose. They have to show, and this is a clear writing choice. I mean, my cousin's a writer. I understand where where they're going with this. So they establish the light and dark, the light and the void, and the moral grayness of it all, right to a party, and just establishing no, she's a bad guy. Like let's. So you were unsure what a bad guy was with the light and the void. Let's show you. No. This is a bad guy. So the only reason for bringing up a party was to show that she's a bad guy. So that's fine. I appreciate that. She did some voodoo thing, a little bit of essential oils, a Reiki stone, whatever. I don't know. And she made a big storm happen. Then we go back to Arathi, where Jaina shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Rory's got some
absolutely.
comments.
So Jaina obviously disapproves, is questioning it. They have this whatever it takes mentality to it, because Sylvanas is such a horrible war criminal. They've got to interrogate who they can, when they can. And before I go into Jaina and Anduin's interaction with it, keep in mind they tortured Apothecary Cotley. They tortured the guy that transported the Dark Ranger, and that guy was a human of Arathi. So Jaina goes off. Lyria's like, "Oh, you're gonna tattle on me? Huh? You're gonna tattle?" And she's like, "Yep, I guess so." And
Good.
the confrontation between Anduin and Jaina here, I think, is very important, because this is really one of the only times we see them really arguing. And not only that, Anduin's perspective on this whole thing was very interesting. Anduin's heart of steel, holding his ground on his opinion, is becoming gradually more visible. A lot less introverted since Legion. He doesn't really doubt himself on the side that he can't rise up to his father. He's just doubting himself on the chaos around him. The hypocrisy on Jaina's end is called out, because it wasn't that long ago she harbored deep resentment and hatred to the Horde. Whether rightfully so, I guess, is debatable. Our city got bombed. I just think some of the ways she went was a little insane, but we're definitely seeing her coming back to reality, coming back to a peace. And it's becoming a bit more and more this arc of hers. And in the cutscenes in Battle for Azeroth, we saw it happening. We saw the Horde and her working together to save Bane, and her and Thrall talking. But now that we actually have words behind it, what's inside her head, I think it's a lot more acknowledged. It's a lot more to see rather than emotions through a cutscene. A good portion of her journey was explored through the Kulturian quest lines. A good quote she said was, "Clarity and time are the final editors of this story."
Ooh, I like that.
I don't know if that's a foreshadow, but I really like that quote. And what interested me most about Anduin in this scene was at the very beginning of the book in Westfall, he's rushing in to save these peasants that spit at his feet, this Jago that hasn't forgave him since the Forsaken Human meetup, and how he still cares for them, how he cares for these soldiers coming in, and that it's his people that matter the most. But he feels insulted when Jaina starts questioning him, when Jaina brings it up, and he sticks with the whatever it takes. Whether justified or not, I thought Anduin would show a little more question to it. I didn't think he'd feel insulted about it. I thought this was very interesting. Very interesting.
Also, she's older. She's a noble. Mm-hmm. She has opinions. She's the head of her own kingdom. Like, he's an 8. This is what bothers me about Anduin, and I'm fine with the alliance. I think they could definitely use more interesting, spicy stories. I'm 100% for it, but you have an 18-year-old High King leading people who have been around for literally thousands of years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not even like, it's not hyperbole. It's the Night Elves have been around for 10,000 years, a little bit over that. The Draenei have been around for 70,000 years, and you have an 18-year-old leading them. Like,
yeah,
why? Why? And I mean, Turalian has been around for over 1,000 years, and they're taking orders from an 18-year-old. I don't get it.
I
notwithstanding, go ahead.
I do want to ask you guys, like, if you could swap out people, who would you want to be king? Do you think like Terrellian?
It's for the story. It's whatever's for the story. I mean, obviously they're putting Terrellian in as the head of the alliance now to move the story forward, because Anduin is such a bland character, and he's supposed to be good. Like in the last book, which I hated this part of the last book, was when Golden put in, and I don't know if this is a Blizzard decision or a Golden decision, where it physically aches him to do the wrong thing.
I didn't like that. I thought that was a little too cookie cutter for me.
It's like he has to be good. If he isn't good, his body starts to hurt.
Awful. Absolutely horrific.
I thought this was just a sudden change for him. Especially, like, it's a torture method. They're torturing these people with the light and the void. Like, that's crazy. Like, I don't think... I didn't see it in their character. And I guess Sylvanas... Like, I don't know. This part is debatable if Sylvanas is really worth the torture that they're doing. And I just thought if Anduin approved, if any way he justified it, I thought he would have showed a little bit more hesitation towards it, especially considering the last book, how much he cared for his people, the beginning of this book, how much he cared for his people, and then learning that they're going around torturing people. I know it was probably just one human they were doing it to, but
that shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
If Anduin is his character that's built up, like you said, to physically ache, and then suddenly he doesn't, why?
Yeah. He's insulted. They say in the book, it says he looked insulted that she even questioned on it.
Yeah, I think this is just them heading into a direction where they want to allow Anduin to make questionable choices.
He can change specs.
Yeah, right.
Right on.
Well, we saw that later on. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point, because he has used Shadow in the past. He's used it in War Crimes. He almost mind blasted Garrosh, and in Mist of Pandaria, he did mind control a dwarf. Not that a dwarf would take any less effort than a human, but he did. It definitely introduces something, and then that he's going to leave the alliance with Terrellian is definitely, they want to do something there. Mm-hmm. That I think is an intentional choice. Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that. That's my rant on it. I just thought it was a very interesting. I thought it was a very important interaction for a lot of reasons.
I agree. We move on then. Go on.
Oh, I was just saying, I do like that part of the book. I like seeing that fire in Anduin and Jaina both. Like, I like it when they get in debates. It's so cool.
Sorry, breaking everything. So we move on to Shaw's ship, Matthias Shaw. He's got some intel on the Horde, and it makes sense that he's missing from all the happenings in game.
Yeah, so Theron is obsessed with poetry, which, I mean, I think Madeline wants to pimp out her short story, but at the same time, everybody always wondered, oh, where's Lorthamar in game? What's he doing? Okay, so he's basically, his WoW is poetry, so that's what he does on
his
his
spare time. Great. I like Lorthamar.
Yes.
Yeah, Lorthamar is a very strong. I'm glad he's part of the Horde. I'm glad he's been around for as long as he has.
He's one of the reasons I do like the Horde.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see he's got a little girlfriend now, the Lystra.
And I love the Lystra, and I like together.
So I hope they get a bit more.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Lorthamar made such a presence in Battle for Azeroth.
Oh, especially in
I hope he
Nazjatar, them two and Nazjatar. Yeah. I love that. That was probably one of my favorite parts in BFA.
I remember getting really upset in Mist of Pandaria when you were going to the Isle of Thunder, and it was Jaina versus Lothamar, and I was like, oh, can you guys just not be friends, please? When Jaina was still on her mad tirade of anger.
Yeah, Lorthamar has done a lot. I feel like they don't talk about him enough, so I'm really, I really appreciate Madeline. Even if it's just a silly little love story, little short story, it was really nice going in depth with what he enjoys.
That short story, though, and I really appreciate that short story because that really showed a lot about his feelings with Uthos and the things that he did to the Blood Elves and his personal feelings on the betrayal, because he personally took offense to what Uthos did.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, I mean, Lorthamar was the one that was in Azeroth while Uthos was knee-deep betraying the Blood Elves, and when he captured the Naru and brought the Naru back, he watched that questionable thing happen.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things to finally be betrayed by his leader, and now he goes through the same exact thing with Sylvanas.
Mm-hmm.
See, I kind of expected Lorthamar or Bane to be war chief. I wasn't really expecting a council. I was expecting Lorthamar or Bane to be war chief.
I think a council makes sense. I think everyone they would have made great leaders, but I think for fan service sake, like it was either
quit killing our war chief,
a darker character. Like people were a little upset when I remember people questioned Vol'jin becoming war chief. It was the first troll war chief. And people were going nuts when Sylvanas became war chief. So I imagine if they made a blood elf the next war chief, I can see how it would even escalate from there. But I think the council's really good. I think it's a good way to make everyone kind of happy. And Lorthamar definitely makes his presence known throughout everything. He's always stuck with the Horde. He's immediately joined Vol'jin's revolution. He immediately joined the revolution against Sylvanas. He's definitely for the people of the Horde and for his own. I think he's one of the best leaders that the Horde has to offer. So
I completely agree.
Good on him.
Damn straight. So, then we go over to Nazmir, where we've got Syrah.
Oh yes,
your favorite.
Oh yeah, my favorite. I love her.
She hates everything.
I love it. And whenever because I didn't really know much about Syrah besides obviously going through like Darkshore and stuff like that, but I didn't really do much research on her until she popped up around this time, and I immediately paused the Audible and I was like looking her up on WoW Wiki and stuff like that, and I was like, whoa dude, she just wants to burn everything. She wants to burn everything. Alright, cool.
And we can also touch that one later too. In the book, she really gets into those feelings.
Yeah.
That hatred for everything.
Which you can kind of understand.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I like the fact that she kind of, in a sense, like embraced her undeath because of the whole Darkshore incident where, she ended up dying and everything, and then she's raised as a Dark Ranger, and she's like, alright, I'm down with this. I just like that.
Have to deal with it.
Forsaken by a loon, forsaken by her leader.
Yeah, I really like that.
But
the very end of the book, whenever we get there, we should totally touch the Syrah topic again, because she definitely does some very interesting things to Tyrande.
So
Uthos threatened Syrah to make himself feel better. That was interesting.
Yeah.
She doesn't care.
She's like, whatever.
He has to realize that she doesn't care, right?
I think they're just kind of trying to stick to his aesthetic in that part. Like that's just how he is with everyone.
So they're out about the Loa thing and how to kill a Loa, which I mean it makes sense. That I just didn't really think about it until it was spelled out for us, right?
Same.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have thought that. Well, I didn't before reading this book. I didn't anticipate that anyone was gonna want to try and kill one somebody. That wasn't what I thought was going to happen.
Yes.
But when they meet Apari, it does make sense. You can understand why Sylvanas is like, actually, we need to destroy Bwonsamdi. He needs to be gone. And then we can focus everything in the next expansion.
Mm-hmm.
But I quite enjoy. I really like Apari's character. I hate her, but I like her character.
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel I have a huge amount of empathy for her. I feel so much has been done to her. And again, I guess it's like Sarah and kind of like Nathanos. They've gone through a lot of shit, and you can understand why they're feeling the way they do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're lashing out, and it's kind of well, she was Princess Phalange's friend before all of this happened. So again, she's like a teenager who's gone through all this shit, and now she's been put in charge with Nathanos, of all people, to destroy all of these shrines, and she's the leader of the rebels. So,
but she's also not. But she's also not a noble in the same way that Talanji was. She was a noble and is now disgraced because of her mother's actions.
Yeah.
In the siege, her body was crushed, and
Poor legs.
she didn't have royalty to fall back on. Like, she didn't have like, oh well, I'm just going to be queen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she does definitely have a lot of motivations.
Yeah, she chose Talanji over her own mother at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just had
Right.
Talanji run by her during that siege. I mean, I know it's a wrong place, wrong time scenario, but I can definitely see that, betrayal through her perspective and why she has this motivation. Like, we've seen this motivation of so many characters before, and I think it's just good to get the Zandalari rebellion perspective of it.
Yeah.
And then they need a pendant from Nathanos, which is the pendant that was given to him when he joined the Farstriders.
Yeah.
We're not going to go through the Farstriders. That's a sloppy lore thing that they have where I don't know if it's part of the government, not part of the government. Alira was supposed to be a ranger, but she decided to join the Farstriders instead, so it's technically a militia group, I guess. I don't know.
Who knows?
We'll move on to Orgrimmar, where Yuka sets up an arranged meeting between the Night Elves and Thrall because of the unrest in the Shadowlands. Okay.
So, Tyrande is pissed, which you would expect.
I don't even know why he set up this meeting. Like, what did he think was going to happen? Like,
Right?
You said sorry and expected it to be better?
yeah.
Well, I mean,
I
it's
brought a
not his
sincere
fault.
apology.
It's not his fault. It's not Thrall's fault.
I know.
I feel sorry for Thrall because he's trying to make amends. He's been associated with the Earthen Ring for such a long time. He's not he's clearly not been instrumental in Sylvanas destroying Teldrassil.
Yeah, he wasn't instrumental in the bombing of Theramore either, and Jaina was still trying to kill him then.
And he's just like, everyone wants to kill me all the time. But,
I think he'd have a better understanding, though. Like, he's dealt with it literally before.
Fair.
He was the face of the Horde when the Horde were the good guys. You know? When in vanilla, when the Alliance was actually the bad guys for the very first time. And because they were being manipulated by a black dragon, so it's not their fault. It's not like I'm not, casting dispersions to the Alliance. I mean, yeah. So that was done intentionally, and I totally get it. But he has to stop being the face of the Horde when the Horde has taken on, they've become the bad guys. Garrosh, I mean, for the ending part of the Garrosh when he became a racist, and Sylvanas throughout all of Sylvanas's manipulation. So, they have to stop turning to him and being like, well, what do you have to say for them? Like, he gave up. He gave up being, the leader of the Horde. I don't get why. So, whatever. He goes to the Night Elves and is just, well, this is awkward,
What do?
What are you supposed to do? Yeah, I don't. I'm really sorry. I don't know.
I guess he was really just trying to figure out the unrest of the spirit realm. Above all, like he was trying to get a priest
That was his
or two.
goal.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he wasn't there to
Yeah,
mainly apologize, but that was what
Right.
was due in order to figure things out. I think Tyrande definitely used this moment, like she knew he was going to come, to like state where she was, like "F you, Thrall," whatever.
Yeah. So and I enjoyed the Night Elves
Mhm.
very much here because I mean Chandra
I love
is-
Chandris.
She's great.
She is.
She has such a rich history. Maev with her rage. I mean,
Well,
she hasn't let it go.
I feel like she has. I feel like in terms of wardens, Syrah has completely taken over
Right.
from Maev as like bloodthirsty, absolute rage, focused on one thing and nothing else.
And she brings
Whereas-
that up at the end of the book.
Maev is much
Yeah.
more focused
Yeah.
on what the alliance needs, and she's calmed down.
Yeah, she's a bit more of that warden stature now.
Exactly, rather than this single-minded.
Yeah, because
Age.
you remember when she went
Yeah.
nuts. So
Yeah.
she's definitely learned a bit from then. I think everything she says, everything the Night Elf says in this chapter is absolutely fair. Like,
Exactly.
And the handing the baton over to Tyrande for the rage. Like that's clear.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It's very clear that Chandris is the voice of reason. Maev is like, yeah, well, this one's even crazier than I was, so let her speak. And Tyranda's just like staring at him. Doesn't
With her
say a
dead
thing.
eyes.
She's
yeah, I'd be
And-
freaked out.
So the interesting part was at the end where, I mean, Kalia says that peace is needed and obviously, but at the end when Tyrande says, when the orphans that were formed from the burning of the tree grow up
Oh,
and remember
yes.
what the Horde did, how are you going to, and that totally makes sense. I'm with her. That's there's never gonna ever be any peace because there's so much bad blood.
Yeah.
But for me, the way that I see this, and I know this probably isn't how the knives would feel, but for me, I guess it's like thinking about the German government and the Nazis and Hitler. And Hitler caused all of this wrongdoing, etc. But it wasn't the German government now.
Right.
So when people that are made orphans grow up, should they be angry at the German government, even
Well,
though that's not necessarily who was involved?
Well, they can't ever have an army, so there's repercussions.
The government of Germany, though, was put on trial. There were trials for them.
Yeah, which is fine, and I
So-
understand that. But I mean, like, when
What I'm
everything has
noticing-
changed,
The Tyrande thing, what I'm noticing is, so the Night Elf seems to have been castrated when they joined the Alliance. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if we're all on the same page or not.
no, I totally agree.
The Night Elves were just beast mode, and then they joined the Alliance and they became muted puppies.
Yeah.
But they had to
Absolutely.
be because they had to be part of this organization. Then you see what happens when you're weak and their tree burns down and now they're unhinged again and they're being themselves. I appreciate that and I really want that to continue. I don't know if everybody's on the same page because you need them to make a point of.
I mean,
like,
it's
don't
only in
mess with us.
conflict against the Horde, though. I mean, the last time that rage was there was the fight against the Legion.
Right.
Although it's great to see. It is what made them. It's what they originate from. This rage, this fury of nature. But I don't think it's healthy at this point in Azeroth, especially when they're trying to mend. Not that it's unreasonable. I think like they absolutely have all the reason to be back in rage mode. But I don't think it should stick to that. I think in due time, maybe longer time than it took Jaina, that hopefully there'll be a turn of the tide. If Thrall brings Sylvanas' head, I know there's a lot of promises made in books that
It's never going to happen.
Yeah,
I know
we'll talk about
chance.
that at the end, where we think this story is going. But Rory had opinions on this.
Yeah, just a little thing. As far as the promises go, like I've seen a good one would be Vol'jin and Tyrathan's promise to kill whoever it was that kills either of them. They made that such a big deal in the book, like a lot of environmental storytelling just around that moment. We even see Tyrathan at Vol'jin's funeral, like saying, "I promised him I would kill his killer," but we never see him again, like ever. He's gone. Like he doesn't even do anything in the final stance, like. I thought that was crazy. So Thrall being like, "I'll give you Sylvanas' head, I promise." Like, is this just going to be another forgotten promise?
I know. Why would you do that?
Like, what's?
Well, he's never going to be able to deliver that. That's
No
the thing.
chance.
But
And Thrall's smarter than that.
And I also see that the direction that this book took with Talanji seems to be the direction that this story is probably going to take with Tyrande. Because Tyrande just wants answers, and by the time that she gets her answers, she's probably not going to want what she wants now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
That
Yeah,
makes
absolutely.
sense.
We'll see that in due time, I guess.
Yeah.
But I just thought, I didn't know if this was foreshadowing for something. Blizzard has mentioned that Sylvanas' motive would be questionable, like to the point where we'd question if it was good or not. I don't know.
Yeah, like they specifically, like Ian Hazzikostas and others have specifically stated that she's morally gray.
Yeah. So I don't know how you could be gray after slaughtering thousands of night elves and numerous others.
I guess she could
like
be.
what
I guess if it did justify the means, I guess she could be like chaotic good.
Well, she was destroying that. She knew that she could get the Horde to destroy Teldrassil. That was something she could do, and they would be fed directly into the Maw, which would increase her power.
And the way that anima works is that a soul's experience through life gathers the anima. So a person that's been around for 10,000 years would have a lot more anima than a person who's been around for.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
I didn't either.
years.
That's a good point.
So by burning the tree, which I think she was going to do all along, but she was going to create torture for them by killing Malfurion and then having their like anger and feelings on that create more anima, and then she was going to kill them.
Was she going?
So then,
yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because I was about to ask, was the motive? Could the motive of killing Malfurion be to kind of what happened with Syrah? You know, like make him feel like, oh well, you didn't protect me, so Elune didn't protect me, y'all didn't protect me, so yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too whenever that was going on, but that makes sense. The anima makes more sense.
If she turned a lot of those night elves into undead though, that would stop the whole anima process. Was that just to bolster her ranks, or to make more fury?
That's just to bring, but she didn't get all of them. She only got some of them back. So that was
the strongest ones that could be
I guess.
helpful to her.
Yeah,
Like Syrah.
This might be a stupid question. Now, it's been stated that Bwansamdi can stop or protect souls from going into the mall, if I'm correct. Now,
only trolls who have made deals with him.
Okay, that's it. All right, I was
so
like,
I guess that if you have a relationship with him where you're praying, this is just me wild speculation. if you're praying to him as a Darkspear or a Zandalari and you have an ongoing relationship where you're feeding him, he has ties to you already. So if you die, he can claim you before you go to the but he made it clear that he wasn't getting every single one. He was getting as many as he could out.
And hiding them somewhere, right?
And hiding them in the other side, which is just pocket dimension in our world. And I mean that
the other side
comes to a crux in Shadowlands clearly with that dungeon. So
I'm looking forward to going more in depth with that.
I can't fucking wait.
Shadowlands looks amazing. I think this is a very good bridge, this book right here, into the next expansion.
Absolutely.
A lot better than Battle for Azeroth. And I think BFA was, although a good story builder, I don't think it was the best expansion. I thought it was.
Well, they just needed. There was questions with that.
It's like every other expansion.
Yeah.
So we head over to Dazar'alor, where Talanji is having nightmares of Shadra. Luckily, Bronzandi pulls her out of her nightmare and explains that their bond is reciprocal.
Right.
So her power is based on him. His power is based on her.
And that's the first time we get that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's the first time we see that she actually can become weaker. Her finger, as she looks at her fingers, and they seem smaller, which we saw in the cutscene with Rastakhan.
Yes.
Yeah, in Rastakhan.
So we actually saw that then first, but
I didn't even
this
think about
is where
that.
it's established that she has the same thing.
Which makes sense. It's carried on through the line. Okay.
So he tells her that that she has to focus on this insurrection that's happening, and she's very intent on like this pact isn't really working out because the reason that there's a rebellion is because they think you're in charge of me.
It's catch-22 situation.
Right. And he throws a little tantrum, saying, "Hey, I'm not the worst. Like, hey, there's Loas that'll just like destroy you. Like, you're pretty lucky to be dealing with me. I'm at least somewhat reasonable."
And I think that's true.
Yeah, no, that is true.
I mean, Bill Ansamdi's whole agenda is deal for a deal, agenda or eye for an eye. Like, you gotta benefit him in some way, and he'll benefit you.
Yeah.
And whether there's different ways to put that in, whether it's a bad guy thing to do or a good guy thing to do, it's just how that kind of Loa works.
Self-preservation, which makes sense. And he's not always doing wrong to people that make deals with him. But as long as it's benefiting him. Sorry, go on.
We go into the Zanchuli Council where they specifically say that they want justice for Rastakhan's death, which I thought was interesting. I mean, of course, as I read it, I'm thinking, of course, this makes sense. But I didn't think of how big of a thing King's death would be to everybody and how much they would want retribution for it. And it didn't just occur to me because obviously, like, if you play Alliance, you're not even thinking like, oh yeah, that just, so we killed their king, like, he shouldn't have started with us type of thing.
Yeah.
So you didn't think of like, oh no, they're gonna want revenge for that. And but the Horde doesn't have an appetite for that with the Armistice. So they're caught in a really interesting place at this point in the book. Obviously, it does have a resolution in the book, but
again, they're very prideful people. They've always been prideful throughout all the lore. They've always had some sort of conflict just for their pride alone. So maybe it's not as much just coming in and killing Rastakhan. It's just their city was sacked by the Alliance. A lot of their navy was destroyed. A lot of lives lost. So, and then to just suddenly be brought into that kind of war, and then suddenly come out of it, like it makes sense why Talanji would be upset, why a rebellion's being formed.
And we're going to end the first episode there. Thanks for tuning into the very first episode of the Aspects of Lore podcast. If you want to send an email to the show with any questions or ideas for future episodes, feel free to drop us a line at aspectsoflore@gmail.com. You can find me all over the internet with my handle at richmathy on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and I'm sure there are other social media sites. You can find Scrappy Coco on Twitch at twitch.tv/ScrappyCoco2113. And you can find Rory on Twitter at RubberRory. Uthos is a 404 at the minute. He cannot be found. Thanks very much for listening, guys. Please drop us a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and we'll be back with another episode and finish up with Shadows Rising next week. Thanks very much, guys. Excited for this. Bye.